Alright everyone, and now we have the ultimate diss of the current election thus far, and also more evidence of the schism within the Democratic Party that I've kept talking about since 2015, and a lot of people just, they don't quite get what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to make it clear here. Too long didn't read version, I suppose. The Democratic Party, the core of the Democrats, is not a homogenous single movement anymore. It's comprised of different groups of people that are ideologically beginning to fracture. You've seen this, AOC coming out threatening several dozen moderate Democrats. Moderate Democrats splitting with the main line of the party for voting purposes to preserve their jobs. And ultimately, part of this is about the fact that there are plenty of Democrats in Congress, especially within the House, that come from Republican districts and are there because they've been there and they're more moderate. That is, they're not anti-gun, or they're not in favor of raising taxes, or they're kind of religious or something, like a Jimmy Carter-style liberal. AOC and other national-level Democrats have ignored this and are attempting to pressure them to do things that will cause many of them to lose their jobs in the subsequent election. The Democrats, if they coalesce around this sort of federalist idea, could take the presidency but massively lose the House and end up lame ducks on day one in the White House. That could happen, especially with a Biden presidency. In fact, I'd be willing to predict that's what would happen, actually, if he becomes the nominee and were somehow to win. You've seen this, but now you've got a symbol of this. Bernie Sanders came out when queried and said, no, I haven't sought advice from Hillary Clinton in the election. No, I'm not interested in getting advice from Mrs. Clinton on how to campaign. You know, because, you know, and essentially the intonation is she lost, she's a fucking loser, she stabbed me in the back, the whole party did, I don't fucking want her fucking advice. And then Clinton's people, like, came out and said, well, look at bitter, grudge-holding, mean Bernie Sanders. And I'm thinking to myself, if I just read emails from the DNC itself that were released by WikiLeaks, the DNC screwed Bernie Sanders. Now, I will say this, in deference to the neoliberals on one end. Sanders would not have won anyway. The restructuring of the debate schedule and the debate stage, you know, attempts to coordinate to get Clinton more money, because money didn't really play a huge role in the last election. If it did, Trump wouldn't be the president. You know, it just wouldn't have happened. I don't believe Bernie Sanders would have won the primaries anyway, because Hillary Clinton still had a large, hardened fan base. You have the I've got a vagina voters, you've essentially the third wave feminists, which is a large core of the younger youth voters. You definitely had, you know, the Clintons have always been popular among inner city sort of minority voters, undeservedly, because all they ever did was make the inner cities worse and then neglect them and throw people in jail for minor offenses. Remember when Clinton said to her little super predator shtick, oh yeah, crack is getting in the cities, and turning these, you know, basically it was a racial reference at the time. It was like she's talking about black people, essentially. And you know, she's the sort of person, the plantation mom that, you know, refers to the Hispanic person there as the help or something when in company with the other rich housewives of D.C. That's the sort of person she is a racist. I mean, let's not mince words here. Hillary Clinton is definitely, she uses minorities as pawns. The Clintons always have. That being said, she always enjoyed high support among them. Bernie Sanders didn't. It is true. I mean, you can even look at the rally that he held, his official campaign launch in Brooklyn. The crowd's like 80% male and overwhelmingly white. There's a reason for it's in Brooklyn of all places, so it's not that it lacks for diversity, and you have this at play. This is going to be a problem for his campaign. Kamala Harris, if she gets a little bit of wind at her back, could easily override him. She's younger. That takes that off the table. She's not white or male, which, you know, for some Democrats is a big sticking point if you are. Her coalition of voters would be larger, and if Biden gets in, I still think he'd become the nominee. And I think he loses spectacularly in the national election. I don't see any Democrat right now who's likely to beat Trump. With Korea going well, you've got conciliatory gestures right after the Hanoi summit. The Sotu buoyed him up. He's going to keep doing that. I don't see any major problems with Trump's potential campaign. And he's already, he said, yeah, I'm running in 2020. There's no strong opposition to him. The Republicans, even the Never-Trumpers are coalescing. Even the Mitt Romneys of the party, of all people, are coalescing around Donald Trump. And that's after he jabbed at Mitt Romney with that one retweet he made of you know, the YouTubers video there that got taken down by what's its name's company, Universal or something, and then he had to redo it with a different song. I mean, it's fucking nuts. But Bernie Sanders, can you blame the dude for not wanting Clinton's advice? She ran one of the worst campaigns in history. She repeatedly canceled stops that she was going to make. She couldn't keep up with Trump. He was doing 4-1 against her. Yeah, she didn't even go to Wisconsin to campaign because she thought that she had it in the bag. She barely went to Michigan. She listened to the polls, and she was stupid to do that. She should have looked at him and said, uh-oh, I think there might be a systemic problem. I need to buoy my support in a couple of these Rust Belt states. If she had done a half a dozen more rallies up there in the Rust Belt, she would have won Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. She would have won the election. Leave it to a Clinton to make such a major glaring mistake. In the upcoming election, the Democrats have to deal with the fact that Virginia will probably flip back to the Republicans. If Warren's their candidate, Nevada will probably flip back to the Republicans. I wouldn't expect her to be able to hold Michigan either. Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, maybe, but it's like a 50-50 proposition. It's funny, Cornine was tweeting out earlier, the MSN, I think it was, does a story. Oh, Texas could become the new battleground. Texas is not going to become a battleground state. Are you fucking nuts? Oh, my demographic shift. Oh, my God. Look, for every point of demographic shift that there's been in Texas, a point of shift in that voting bloc's tendency to go for Trump has shifted in the other direction. He's got 3 or 4 additional points of support among Hispanics now in some states now than he did in the last election. His approval among Hispanics is... he already beat Mitt Romney out by 2 points in the last election. He's several points beyond that. Texas is not going to go blue. No, if Beto O'Rourke ran, it'd probably be less blue. Because he's such a cringe-meister, his national support would be less. Somebody showed me a Harris poll I think it was 2 days ago. It's like, oh, Trump's approval is slipping in the Midwest, right where he needs it. Trump does not need excessive approval in a place like Iowa, where he was like, what, 8 points ahead anyway in the election? Iowa's no longer the bellwether of the United States. What are you talking about? Missouri, oh my God, he might only win by 10 points. It's terrible. What a weak Republican. Ohio, he might only win by 5-6 points. Indiana by 7 or 8. That's not competitive. That's pie in the sky. And this is one poll. This is one polling firm. Use an aggregate. Again, stop. When people send me single polls saying, well, Trump's got 52% approval. Oh, really? Where'd you read it? Rasmussen says so. I don't give a fuck. Put it in an aggregate. Show me that number. CNN says that in deep red Texas, he's 2 points behind potential... No, he's not. No, that's bullshit. It's not enough of a sample. It's one fucking poll. A sample that, in some cases, it's not even a sample of, like, registered voters or likely voters. It's just a random scattering of the population. Some 17-year-old could be participating in that poll. Somebody who's a lunatic, who's a felon who can't vote. So, what's the fucking point? I would say right now, Bernie Sanders is right to forsake Hillary Clinton. I don't see him, number one, becoming the nominee, and if he does, it's going to be a bloodbath. Trump's going to wipe him off the face of the earth. All of these Bernie bros, they keep saying, well, he can do it. You know, give Bernie... Okay, let's put a near 80-year-old geriatric socialist who could stroke out on the debate stage in the most literal sense. He's geriatric, he's a white male, he's already run and lost once, he didn't even become the nominee the last time around. Let's put him up before somebody like Trump. He will lose. He will lose, and then you'll have the Never Bernie voters. Dude, the Clinton voters are way more vicious. For every, like Bernie Sanders diehard fan that refused to cast their ballot for Hillary, and they, like, stayed home or voted hippie grandma Jill Stein or Johnson or maybe even Trump out of anger, there'd be, like, 10 Hillary voters that would do that. Hillary Clinton's people are way more vicious and vindictive. Did you see the comment sections on the internet in the last election? And the vitriol, the hate, the vile venom, and the evil misandry and pro-war rhetoric and crazy conspiracies from the Hillary Clinton crowd? These people are fucking nuts. No, they're not going to vote for Bernie Sanders. They will say, the first poll shows him behind by a point. They'll abandon him like rats off a sinking ship. Well, we're going to vote for hippie grandma. We're going to vote third party. We're going to vote Mickey Mouse. I'm going to vote Trump just out of spite so that the Bernie bros can see what it's really like to be under an evil orange tyrant fascist dictatorship. That's what they'll do. Millions of Democrats will stay home or vote for Trump or third parties or independent candidates. They'll vote for Schultz. Whether he runs or not, he'll have hundreds of thousands of votes at that point. Guaranteed. Bernie Sanders will not be your president. And if he did, you'd have another president pretty soon. The stress of that office would kill him. He's almost 80 years old. He'd be an octogenarian in his first term. The Democrats is such a... Here's the other part. Here's why the DNC will pull out all the stops to stymie him once again. You watch, they will. It's going to become a distraction. It's going to rip the Democratic coalition apart. Trust me. This is why Trump has a 90% chance of winning the next election, regardless of what happens with the economy maybe at this point. What's going to happen? They'll try to stop him because they're looking at, oh, he'd be 83 years old at the end of his first term. We won't have an incumbent. He's not going to be able to run again. He said he would lose by a huge amount. We will have to force him out. We might have to impeach our own president at that point on some trumped-up charge to get the VP to be the one running. They'll try to get him out of office from day one. The Democrats would. He's not even a Democrat. He's been an independent his whole fucking life. Yeah, an 80-year-old white male socialist. Nothing says youth appeal and being able to heal the gaping wounds in the Democratic Party like someone who comes out and says this about Clinton. And he's not wrong. I'm not faulting him for it. I wouldn't listen to Clinton's advice either on a campaign. It'd be crazy to do that. Do you honestly think, though, that Sanders is going to be able to campaign for the next fucking year at the same rate Trump can? Trump's already got hundreds of millions in his war chest now anyway. He's been campaigning since the moment he was in office. He's already way, way ahead of any of the other candidates. Like they said, well, in the first 24 hours, Sanders raised more money than all these other Democrats. Doesn't matter. Money no longer matters in politics as much, ironically. We've democratized and federalized elections and put it on the internet largely. Why do you think they're constantly trying to crack down on people like me? Or people like a Sargon or fucking Dawson or anybody? They're trying to crack down because they fear the alt media. We're the kingmakers at this point. A few thousand fucking people online have more audience than the whole legacy media has. Yeah, and a lot more efficiently. Of course they're afraid. Especially since disproportionately the online alt media is at least partially in support of Trump and his policies. It's not in support of somebody like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is mocked completely. He's ridiculed because he's fucking nuts. And the Democrats would be fucking nuts to let him become nominee. If Biden doesn't come along to save him, that may very well happen. Oh my God, what if... I hope he becomes the nominee. I'll tell you, not even for Trump winning, but can you imagine the debates? Can you fucking imagine? I will live stream during them and just give running commentary because it'll be so funny. I'll have to have a co-host. I'm going to have to literally create sort of a remote show or something with 2 or 3 other fucking people on it just to sit around and laugh at the crazy shit Bernie and Trump will say to one another. It will be the funniest thing ever. I hope he becomes the nominee. Biden would be funny because he's a gaffe master. You're just waiting for him to say crazy shit. Most of the others are boring, though. Tulsi Gabbard would be funny, but she's not going to become the nominee. They've already scrubbed her out of existence. They don't even put her in polls anymore. There's a reason for that. They don't want her to be the nominee. Because she's too young to win, but, you know, she's more sane than the other Democrats. Her may be like, you know, Julian Castro or Kirsten Gillibrand. When Kirsten Gillibrand seems to be the moderate in the race, you've got problems. That's about all. Peace out.